Voyager's come across a new type of anomaly, and this one doesn't fit into either of the standard swirly or wibbly categories. The special spaghetti fog shouldn't exist, and is all kinds of interesting, according to everybody on the bridge. Well, nearly everybody, as Kim isn't paying attention until Janeway tells him to do his job. He doesn't even join in when everybody else starts mocking Tuvok for not having feelings, instead brutally staring off into the middle distance. Later, Tuvok is playing Vulcan Kaplunk when he's interrupted by Kim. He asks Tuvok to train him to suppress his emotions like Vulcans do, as he has feelings he doesn't want. Is this the episode where we finally admit why Kim and Paris spend all of their free time together? But no, well, not exactly. He is in love, just not with Paris, at least not consciously, as the affection he's referring to is for someone called Morena. Which would be all well and good if she actually existed, but you see, she's a holodeck character. We're walking through corridors trying to track down precisely what Kim feels, but bugger that because this character just here refuses to get out of the way for two self-obsessed arseholes taking up the entire path, and instead just goes straight through the middle, making them my new favourite character. Tuvok wants to investigate Kim's affection, so we're off to the holodeck. We meet Morena and have a little chat, until it's interrupted by Tuvok and Kim being called to the bridge. There's a party this evening, so maybe they'll continue it later. Tuvok doesn't seem to require further conversation, as he's already diagnosed Kim based on his reactions. It's infatuation, and given that it cannot become something more stable due to the nature of the target, his only course of action is to disengage. Easier said than done, but we'll have to shelve that for now as we arrive at the bridge. That spaghetti fog which shouldn't exist, it's about to go up in flames. Their theories show this should have happened ages ago, hence not existing, so maybe this'll explain why. One strand of spaghetti burns out, but doesn't make the others catch as expected. We're not quite sure why, so we fly a bit closer before Janeway remembers there's a party and we all go to that instead of watching the big explodey thing right next to the ship. And she lets Tuvok know that his attendance is expected, because apparently this is the Everybody Shits on Tuvok episode. Looks like Kim didn't get the message on attendance, cause he's in his quarters doing meditation things. Paris arrives to ask why he's not at the party, then guesses it's because of Morena. Paris says it's fine because everyone's fallen in love with the simulation, and I'm not convinced he's the best person to judge on that one when he's admitted he includes an ex-girlfriend in every holodeck program he makes. Kim sees no problem in taking relationship advice from the only man on Voyager able to act divorced without ever having been married, and we go to the party. As does Tuvok. He's greeted by Janeway and Chakotay and makes his discomfort at attending known. Until, that is, he spies something that engages his curiosity. It's Morena, and she's playing Vulcan Kaplunk. He walks over and begins a conversation, only to have her psychoanalyze him based on his behaviour and appearance, and if there's anything capable of getting Vulcan juices running, it's brain stuff. He joins her. Speaking of people joining people, Ensign Conspicuous is making moves on B'Elanna. She doesn't seem fully into it, but the alternative is spending time with Paris, so, realising she's stuck between a cock and a hard place, she chooses the one less likely to get a bit handsy. Paris gets blown off again, and not in the good way, when Kim declines his offer of grabbing some food. It seems seeing Morena and Tuvok playing Kaplunk together has made him lose his appetite. Just as well he left, as he wasn't going to get a look in tonight. Tuvok and Morena are still talking long after everybody else has left the party. This time it's Morena's turn to be fascinated, so much so that she makes a pass at him. He makes his excuses and departs, but will perhaps return again. We're back on the bridge, and Janeway's had enough of this spaghetti fog bullshit. After assigning Kim to analyse the data we've collected, twice because he wasn't paying attention the first time, she orders the ship to move on. Looks like Voyager has other ideas, as the controls aren't responding. Down to engineering we go to find out why. Ensign Conspicuous is given some more lines again, so we're definitely lining him up for something, but that takes a back seat to Kim pining over Morena like a puppy denied his favourite toy. He's bloody useless like this, so B'Elanna tells him to piss off for a break or something. Instead, he goes to the holodeck to find Morena, but she's busy getting kaplunked by Tuvok. A bit of a Barney ensues with Kim storming off, but not before Tuvok states Morena is just a simulation and dismisses her, much to her dismay. On the bridge again, and we're going to give that whole leaving thing another try. It's still not working, but B'Elanna does manage to get thruster control, so we can limp away and sort the problem tomorrow once we're outside of the big explodey thing. With that sorted, Tuvok returns to his quarters for a little peace, only to find an uninvited guest. You'd think the chief of security would have better logs. She's infatuated with him, desperate to know more and spend her time in his company. Breaking into somebody's home to declare your love for them isn't generally the done thing on Vulcan though, and Tuvok instead sets off an alarm. Morena disables it, showing she has some control over the ship and likely implicating herself in the problems we've been having, but a security team shows up to prevent any further romantic overtures on her part. Defeated for now, she scarpers by leaving the dock's mobile emitter. Janeway's not best pleased at the prospect of a holodeck character having free run of Voyager. Chakotay reminds us of the time this happened on the Enterprise, Moriarty, if I recall, though it's been a while, which raises a question I've been asking for some time. Why the fuck are holodecks still allowed on Starfleet ships? All of which is irrelevant right now. We need to get down to the holodeck and sort Morena out before this gets any worse. Tuvok, Paris and B'Elanna enter the simulation. Tangentially, why is Paris here? Tuvok makes sense because he's security and the focus of Morena's attention. B'Elanna's there for her tech knowledge, but Paris? What's the plan there? Get Morena to give up by convincing her that all men are scum? It's academic anyway, as she's not there. B'Elanna accesses a control of some sort and discovers there's a signal coming from inside the spaghetti fog that's controlling the holodeck. The characters around them aren't too fond of her meddling and attack. Tuvok tells Paris to shoot the simulated control panel to turn them off, which we probably shouldn't think about too hard, and then we scarper. Back up to the bridge to report our abject failure, but they've got their own shit to worry about. More and more of the spaghetti strands are kabooming, and the ship is getting caught in the middle. B'Elanna tells Janeway that someone's cocking about with our systems from inside the spaghetti fog, causing Chakotay to conclude that Morena is just an avatar for whoever's in control. Morena herself confirms this by using the comms system to call Tuvok and tell him to come to the holodeck, and if he doesn't, she'll destroy Voyager. He pops down there to keep her busy while B'Elanna tries to track down where the signal's coming from. Morena tells Tuvok he can stop pretending now, convinced that her feelings are reciprocal. Tuvok asks her to release the ship or they'll have no choice but to stop her. She responds that there's nothing they can do, an opinion he proves wrong when he teleports to the source of the signal. He arrives and discovers his comm badge doesn't work, rather casting doubt on the viability of a teleport signal, but will let that go. He finds the real Morena, who we discover lives alone on an outpost within the Spaghetti Nebula. She's the reason it hasn't simply exploded, as whenever one strand becomes too volatile, she isolates any kaboom from the others. She also has the power to ignite them, something she threatens to do against Voyager if Tuvok doesn't agree to stay. You see, she's been here alone for years, having taken it upon herself to preserve the nebula so that others may visit it as some sort of celestial tourist attraction. As an aside, unless she's from a race that doesn't sleep or eat or shit, there must have to be times when she's away from the controls, suggesting the task can be handled by automation, and raising questions over her need to be there at all, but we'll ignore all that for now. She says the isolation was her choice, that it's preferable to being around others, and that this is something she'd seen mirrored in Tuvok. While she sometimes interacts with the computers of passing ships to amuse herself, this was the first time she'd found a ship with onboard holographic projection, perhaps because all the others aren't willing to ignore how fucking dangerous it is. Her interactions with Tuvok left her feeling a connection she'd not felt before, one that she couldn't bear to be without. Tuvok tells her he'll remain with her if there's no other way to save the crew, but that it's not his desire. While finding their time together mentally stimulating, he tells her about his family and his responsibilities. She relents and frees him by allowing his comm badge to work, and Tuvok suggests that perhaps it would be wise to consider passing her duties to someone else and spending time among others for a while. As he teleports away, Morena retorts that such advice may be applicable to him, too. Back on the ship, Tuvok is playing some more solo Kerplunk. Perhaps contemplating Morena's words, he decides to take himself to the holodeck instead and offers to teach Kim how to play. He also apologizes for being a turbo-dick by so casually dismissing Kim's emotional investment in Morena, and they start playing as we fly away. The topic of isolation is something that an above-average quantity of Trek nerds can associate with, myself included. The nature of the subject matter means we boast a significant quotient of people with spicy brains. To us, normal people are bizarre, confusing balls of lies and pantomime to which they apply the label social skills. Just like Fight Club, the first rule of interpersonal communications is that nobody talks about interpersonal communications. It's like being expected to sit for a hand of poker with people who refuse to tell you what a card game is, and if you don't win, you get called a selfish cunt. Hardly surprising then that some of us find it easier to simply not play the game. But the desire for connection is a basic human trait. We are, after all, social animals. We've clawed our way to the top of the food chain as much by working together as by being vicious little bastards, and the DNA of people who don't make connections simply doesn't get passed on. It is, in a very real sense, a genetic predisposition. It's to be expected, then, that those of us who experience fewer connections often feel them more strongly, which is fine if it's reciprocal, but potentially damaging when it's not. Morena is a well-executed example of the latter, an obsession taken to extreme lengths. She's a pitiable villain, something quite difficult to pull off when you're threatening to kill 150 or so people, even if one of them is Tom Paris. An extra point should also be awarded for how differently she acts when using her holographic avatar, a nod to the feeling of power that anonymity can bring and, perhaps, a reference to something that was becoming more and more common on the internet at the time this was made. We also get a little more exploration of Tuvok, namely his aloof and disconnected relationship with most of the crew. I'd applaud the step of progress he takes at the end of this episode, but it's difficult to celebrate character growth when I suspect it'll be forgotten again by the next one. End of episode.